that that's definitely important to start that back up, and I would love to be, a part of that. So that's definitely something to consider. Is I don't know what was happening before COVID, but whatever it was nice to have, and they mentioned being able to have that again. So,
thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
I think I saw somebody else.
Hello, my name is Ami Valenzuela Altamari. I am a Chandler parent and a Chandler resident, but I'm a Tempe school kid, public school kid. Came through Escalante, which was through elementary, and then ended at Corona and living in Ahwatukee. I've lived in Boston, I've lived here. My father was head of a very successful program, and I want to preface this. It was multiculturalism in the form of MLK. It was all around the valley. That is folded as of many years ago. He's been retired. But one of the things that gave us all the chance, and I ended up going into that work, and is that it helped us work with gangs, gang prevention, local police, the chief of police of Phoenix. We've got a lot of communities that overlap with each other. Like, I'm coming from this USD school district, and all three of my kids are schooled through there. We overlap because a lot of our schools are in the Gilbert and the Queen Creek, as well as my church is in the Queen Creek boundaries. So I'm here to let you know that please, when you do this survey, spread it out really wide, because I'll tell you, it reached Chandler and beyond. It reached my family, my mother, who's a former school board member for Kyrene School District, all the way down to Ahwatukee as grandparents. And I have nieces and nephews in the Gilbert School District, and I just wanted you to know I'm concerned, and here's the things I'm offering. I have attended Coffee with a Cop. I think it's a great program, so thank you. Those are great ideas. I love the survey idea. Because we overlap, it got a lot of us parents talking in Chandler because, unfortunately, of the death of young Preston Lord. Because we know that a lot of our kids and friends of our kids might have been at that party or were. So and then my son goes to EOS and changed his schedule and was starting off. I was concerned for his safety as a male because that seemed to be the profile. Tempe, Mesa, Phoenix, they've all been doing this gang prevention. In fact, Chandler, we just re-looked on a parent committee I served on. We looked at the clothing, on what we're expecting on how kids come to dress, those dress codes. And one thing I think I was very happy to hear is that with all of Chandler, we were able to eliminate the gang attire out of the dress code. It hasn't been an issue for us for a while. Gang is a gang mentality. And what I'm understanding, the young men that got in trouble here, and that were the reason for this Teen Violence Prevention Council, is because of that, and gang mentality is part of this. The other thing I'm going to say, as a long-time four-generation Arizonan, we have to look at our growth. Who's coming in? What cities? What's the mentality for violence and those things there? We're all trying to get along here. We're all converging into the East Valley, and we know it's growing. We know it's growing quite a bit. We know that the divorce rate was up to 76% by 2021. These are the things I pay attention to, but in addition, a lot of my newer friends are coming from all over the country. And there's concerns with the local New Fries. There's been some violent attacks over there. Also, as a longtime Arizonan, I want to say, because Arizona is not perfect, nor are us natives, but one of the things we do know is that we do need a diverse sense of faith council in the East Valley. So any kind of committees that we're going to be looking at in churches, we're going to involve all the churches, I'm hoping. Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, non-denominational Christian, as well as Mormon. We have to have a checks and balances on all things that we're looking at. So I would just state that as a native Arizonan. And then the last thing I was looking at is bring back the 80s program. I think those block watches are awesome. We're doing it with suicide prevention all over the valley, like teachers and parents can have something on our purse or on us that says we're a safe person to come and talk to. Let's just expand that. Clearly our youth are in crisis. There's social emotional regulation. You talk to your kindergarten teachers, and I have a lot of teacher friends. I'm an education major, but thank you. I did not go into it to teach. I went into it to be a nonprofit. But I thank you for your dedication, and I completely agree that teachers' backs are against the wall. And as a parent, I'm your third partner. I own it. I have to own what decisions my kids make and the foundation that my husband and I lay down before them, but the decisions they make out there, with or without me, I have to own and take some responsibility in there. And I'm here, and there are a lot of us out there. I think 80% of parents really do want to be a part of the talk and be a part of the prevention. If there's training to be had, we can be a safe person, how we can be a more active bystander. I also come from bullying prevention of the 90s and the early 2000s in my former career. So these are the things I like to talk about. We want to be more comfortable talking to our kids. And what I was going to say about kindergarten teachers is they see the crop, I say the crop of young children coming in, third grade teachers. If there's more social regulation, it's getting worse right now in this year for kindergartners. What's it look like in 16? How can we in our school policies and as parents be warned, the codes of conduct we signed to at the beginning of the year? What are we, when we send our kid to any chosen school, what are we agreeing to abide by as well in our home, and what our child might get in trouble for, or what we're responsible for? I do have to say, I'm going to push back on the socio-emotional regulation. I think we need to look as our country as a whole with social media. It came, it's here. It's hard to regulate. We have got some really great local expert speakers that provide a lot of free options to go get educated as a social media. You know, if you're going to give this to your kid, get educated in it. I've gone to so many, anything I can soak up that's free. It's just a responsibility we have as parents. So in doing so, I think schools, I like it when Chandler has had these rooms that are run by actual social workers, those in the mental health field, not the advisors or the counselors at the school that we've always had. But they can catch some things ahead of time with a kid, and it's a safe place to go. And as a lot of you know, we recently opened up the Hope Institute. Was that needed? I don't know, but if suicide is on the rise, and we've already seen a few over the Christmas holiday and a funeral I've gone to, I think we need to look at the violent factor. It can be on a spectrum on how a kid copes with life, and we're seeing social media does not make it any better. That's my 2 cents as a mother of 3 and a former Arizona public school kid, and someone who actually went into nonprofit to be a part of the solutions. I think more and more people, even no matter what your degree, no matter what your background, and if you're willing to come to the table and speak and be a part of the solutions, please sign up my house. I'll put a sign in my house that a kid can run. And if I, oh, this was my last one. Since I heard one of the attacks was at an In-N-Out, a very popular one in a very popular area. A lot of kids go shopping and go to after 6 p.m. That is open after 6 p.m. I was curious what we could do with those local businesses, their employees. I'm not asking them to intervene, but when a fight or a conflict breaks out inside or on their parking lot, where's their responsibility? Where's the safety measures? What can we be doing to ensure that kids are kept safe? I know a lot of people have phones, they'll film it. They may not always call 911. Do kids know the numbers to call? Is it that prevalent? Do they see it around maybe the schools all over our community? We can just blanket. Here's what you call when you see a fight break out. It's an anonymous. Maybe our kids just need to be educated on that. They know how to do a lot on their phone, but I'm just wondering, it may seem obvious to us as adults that have grown up in some very different generations, but maybe it's not so obvious to them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I like the idea of resurrecting block watch, putting the signs out in the front yard. It says safe house. I love that. Also, I think that gives us a great idea of the next item we're going to talk about on the community survey, that we expand that into the faith community also. That might be worthwhile.
Could I get your email address, or maybe go online on the city website and send me an email? I'm interested in the social media training. Thanks.
I just wanted to point out some of it, making parents responsible for the kids. In a criminal sense, that would be a state issue. We couldn't do it at a town level or a school board level, obviously. But the sad part is that good parents are generally pretty easy to involve. It's bad parents that aren't easy to involve and change. And not every kid, not every bad kid was born bad, but not every bad kid wasn't born bad either. It might be good parents with a bad kid, I don't know. But I think it's a little easy for us to say, make the parents responsible. I think that's too easy, and it's not gonna bear fruit. Trying to reach out and involve parents of bad kids, that's an interesting take, and there's something that might be hard, because if it's bad parents, we're not going to get any traction. But if it's good parents with a bad kid, it just might make a difference for one kid, and that's better than none. So, yes, ma'am.
When I was teaching back in the day when there was actual accountability, the parents of kids who, if they got in trouble, I think it was up to 4 times, and nothing changed, the kid was not allowed back until the parent came in and sat with the child throughout the day. So that was, it's not any money thing, it's nothing like that, it's just the school saying, this is the rule, this is what happens. And that was very effective, because parents didn't have to take the day off from work, and then the kids also embarrassed because there's parents with them, so it was very, very effective. Just for FYI.
Thank you. Norlise? Push the button.
Which one? My name is Doris Michelle Liddell, and I'm here and I'm listening. But one of the things I would like to hear about as an outcome, I don't know who's doing this or who was arrested other than what's in the news, but some are over 18. They're adults. And so how are we getting to the adults? And how are we, they need to be accountable. So they were a child before juvenile at 18, but these are adults. And so if it is a game, I don't know, we need to have some type of outcome about that. So I hope that we expand it, because I think that is needed. And I know that there was a juvenile who was murdered, which is terrible. But these are adults also. So I just hope that the outcomes, you consider that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on desired outcomes of this process? One more? Push the button. Down at the bottom.
No, there you go. The use of the bad kids, I hope you didn't hear that in my comments, because that's one thing I want to preface. There are struggling kids and there are struggling parents. And I think when I say about the divorce rate, when I say about social-emotional, it's impacting the whole family. And I think parents are overwhelmed. And social media came on us like a frickin' wave. And we're all struggling to figure it out. Some of our kids get through this stage. Some of us got to bypass, and our kids did get those phones till college. Some are holding strong, they'll never get one. Okay, that's a choice. But we know the social landscape for kids has changed, it almost demands them to be on it. We know in the school system, teachers even ask, and the school system asks, and this is not a blame on teachers, ask them to please bring out their phone. They communicate with them in a lot of ways, and sometimes there are ways of teaching or reminding them in clubs and those types of things. But I would say that we stayed away from that, and I did community building and community education. And even in my younger years, in my most newer years in nonprofit, I worked with some gang members and competing gang members that were as young as 13, 14, 15. They were really good people, and I came from a neighborhood that had a very infamous gang come out of it. I grew up those first few years of school knowing that one existed, passing by them to my little brownies meetings. They never bothered me. This kind of gang, though, that erupted over here or called itself a certain name, slightly different, a little bit different, but it still begs the question of what brought it together in the first place. And can I compliment you on the brass knuckles? I know a parent could buy that for them, just like a gun, but I do appreciate looking at some legislation, especially if we're seeing that kids' minds are not very well developed to know 10 steps ahead of their actions. Let that just be said. But then again, we know kids will make a weapon out of anything. Shoot, a cement block, a rock. It's what's going on inside this kid, you know, that makes these decisions. And I do have to push back that I think we as parents, we know some things about, even as overwhelmed as we are, we know some tendencies about our children. We know it 4 or 5 years before it really erupts in a bad way. We start to see the signs. So I'll just leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you all for those comments. Let's move on to talking about the survey. Councilmember Bongiovanni, you want to talk about that some?
I met with the superintendent of schools in one of the cities, and like it was mentioned here, there are some regulations that have to go through before we can just do a survey. We want to make sure that our survey is statistically valid. You do need parental permission to take a survey like that in a school setting. But I really think getting that scope from the kids themselves. You know, we as adults can say, yeah, I think my kid feels really safe in the community. But if you give them a survey, take a look at the data from a number of teenagers, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But we don't know right now because we don't have that data. And I don't want to make a bad decision on a bad assumption.
I think that those are good points, and plus the things we've heard from those that have spoken, I think that helps feed into how effective the survey can be. Thank you. Item 4 is creation and scheduling community and listening sessions, and I wanted to open this again to all of you. Tell us, as we've mentioned, this subcommittee. We won't actually vote on any action items, and we will make recommendations to the council to vote on. So we want to get as much input as possible. So we want to create listening sessions. Let me ask you the question, if the time is appropriate, is this format, this is the way the subcommittee is set up. But any thoughts or ideas on these listening sessions that we can do differently than today, if you think that's appropriate?
Are you asking in general?
I was asking the audience, but I'll take you too.
Yeah. Would it be, I guess we're asking the audience, one of the questions that you had, I guess, Vice Mayor, is this time appropriate, or do you think we get more input if we did it in the evenings?
I think that the later, the better, and you'll get more people, community members being able to attend. A lot of people are at work right now, so it's difficult. And I had to leave work early to be here, so I think, you know, even if we can do it like 4:30, 5 o'clock would definitely be better. Thank you.
I agree, the later the better, but one thing that I think is gonna be a big problem is for teachers who are working now, they're not gonna come up and say anything, because if they're seen here, they have the, they are gonna get picked on, by the administration and found, and this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and then they're gonna get fired. It's just, I've seen it time and time again. When they speak out, things go wrong. So if there's a way to do an anonymous way to speak for teachers, to speak with you guys, maybe, have individual meetings, or maybe anonymous emails, something to that effect could be effective.
Thank you. Chris, could you tell us again about us meeting singly, individually with groups of people?
Yes, Vice Mayor, Subcommittee members, so as you're aware, the subcommittee was appointed by the council, so you're subject to Arizona's open meeting laws. And what that means is anytime 2 or more of you, all 3 of you get together, it has to be done at a public meeting that's been noticed at least 24 hours in advance with the time and the location and the agenda items to be discussed. So a listening session that has 2 or more of you is a public meeting. It will be noticed, and minutes have to be taken because it's a meeting for the public. If the committee members, subcommittee members would like to meet individually with people, you are free to do so. That's not subject to the constraints of open meeting law.
Thank you. Yes.
Another recommendation is a survey for teachers, and possibly the ability to do an anonymous survey. I know, would surveys be open to public records request?
Yes.
Vice Mayor, they would be, once complete, the responses would be, and if they're done anonymously, then just the responses would be subject to the public records laws.
So that's definitely an option for these teachers to be able to speak up, but in order to do it anonymously and have their names be able to be hidden. Just that.
Good thought.
Again, that she's repeated, the ability to reach out to teachers and get some input. But like Chuck had his Chuck Chats thing, right? Where people go, if there was something where we could have that specifically anonymously for teachers to be able to talk to me, you, anyone, in that same format, that might help, because maybe they have a story to tell that doesn't quite come out of the survey. So something of that nature might be an option as we try and gather this information and figure out how we can at least help.
That's good.
It's something to remember also that we have no oversight over the schools. They are their own school districts, and we would have to work with them in order to get any survey approved. And my hope is that they will see the need for it, and they will agree to do those things. But we would need their permission. We have no oversight over that.
That's why I think it's important to bring them in early on to talk about what we want to do and see if they'll go along with us. Any other thoughts? Yes.
Since there seems to be 3 of us, I'm going to add, would you be open to a parent forum in which, because public speaking and coming up here is intimidating, but I have a lot of friends who would love to speak, but in a safer scenario like school cafeteria that's hosted, or a public library with multiple tables with trained facilitators. Not anybody can be that kind of person at a discussion table. I know Perry High tried to do some, kind of got canceled in that infamous 2020-2021 with a faction of parents that shut that down, and that was just for good dialogue to bring parents in. So maybe it needs to be, maybe we've grown past that as a world and as Arizona, that we can bring together, some tables in a large cafeteria auditorium, and parents just sit amongst each other and with their name tags and someone who's trained to put some good rules around some discussion, so there's no yelling, and that the differences of opinion and how to attack this are welcomed at each table, but it might be just more comfortable than speaking in a microphone. And then those are all collected, maybe even the old school format of huge piece of butcher paper, and it's turned into you guys, and somebody can type it up and find the findings, because it might help structure your survey and the directions we need to go. And thank you too. I want to mention our police officers and our first responders. They usually are the ones that are very involved in these violent conflicts, and I thank them. And I know they've been taxed in a lot of ways with where they can be and who they can respond to. So I know when we ask for more presence, security, we're also asking for you to expand your budget for that, as well as their departments. So I just want to put that out there. They're not missing from this equation. They're very much a part of it.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing from you, Chris, is that if we do something like that, we go to a cafeteria and where it's a little bit more informal than in here, if all three of us are there, it is a public meeting. We still have to post it.
Vice Mayor, that's correct. Whether 2 or 3 are there, as long as more than one, it'd still be a public meeting. You can hold it in a different venue as long as it's posted and you agendize whatever items you're going to discuss. But you could agendize a general discussion with the public about the topic, right?
Can we know if it's open?
And minutes do have to be kept as well, Vice Mayor.
One thing we have to remember that sometimes this dais becomes a barrier. And one thing that I respect the Vice Mayor for, one of the first things he said to me was, I wish we could have done this in a cafeteria somewhere, where we're not up here and you guys are down there. So I really do like that idea. I'm more informal anyhow, so I really enjoy it. I really enjoy that comment. It's hoping we can do something like that.
Any other thoughts? I think at this time, we'd like to invite Chief Soelberg to make a presentation. This is something we're getting on a regular basis, a report from him, and I think the community, I know we appreciate it.
Vice Mayor, Subcommittee, Council members, Mike Soelberg, Chief of Police. As you mentioned, I'll be providing a statement. I don't have a presentation, just an updated statement for you. To everyone here in the audience, and the media, and the community who is watching or will watch in the future, thank you for all being here. I just wrapped up a media briefing across the street a couple hours ago, and I'm happy to share with you some of the comments I made over there. Over the past several weeks, our focus at the police department has been on supporting the tremendous investigative activities that have been occurring behind the scenes. These efforts are exactly what have led to recent arrests. Through our investigations, we've also learned that none of these attacks are random. Before the death of Preston Lord, we made 13 arrests related to incidences of teen violence that occurred between February 2022 and his death. Since January 3rd, we made 9 additional arrests, including 1 within the last 24 hours, thanks to the assistance of the community members and the media over the past 2 years. Over the past 2 years, we have made 22 arrests related to teen violence, and there will be more. We are continuing our investigations. Violent crime is on the rise across the country. Although overall crime is down in Gilbert, violent crime is up in Gilbert. And that is reflected both in crime trends involving adults and our youth. In 2022 and 2023, Gilbert PD responded to 375,568 calls for service across our community. Of those calls for service, incidents of teen violence made up less than 0.07% of our total calls for service. And to clarify that stat, that is teen-on-teen violence, the ages of 14 to 18. Having said that, every call for service matters. We will continue to investigate reports of crimes, pursue justice for victims, and hold offenders accountable, teen or otherwise. I can assure you that I and our entire department are committed to bringing justice to anyone involved in criminal acts, as well as assuring the safety of our teens in our community. We are still the second safest city in the country, and we will continue to work tirelessly to ensure that that remains so. As I said earlier, we are all in this together. I am thankful to see community members and others here, and look forward to all we can do together to make sure that every teen in our community feels safe. Thank you. I do want to add to it a little bit. Just a reminder, when we do still have a block watch program. Our crime prevention unit runs that. If anyone needs any information, you can get a hold of our PIOs, and we can connect you to those resources. In addition to that, we have what's called GAIN, Arizona, getting Arizonans involved in neighborhoods. It's a nationwide event that normally happens in the summer. We choose not to do it in the summer because everyone's in their air conditioning and don't want to come outside. So that's in the fall, in the late fall each year that we do that. And so that is another opportunity to where we can provide resources to help educate and bring the community together. Part of it is educational, but part of it is also providing those resources so they get to know each other's neighbors when they're looking for them. It's an informal block watch party, if you will, and it's an opportunity to meet. And we go to those as well, and so they can talk to us about what's going on as well. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Does the block watch include a sign of some kind that indicates that it's a safe place?
Yeah, and if you qualify for that, so there are some criteria in order to meet the standard for that, and I don't have that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But that's where some, if they don't continue that participation, there's things you have to do each year. There's a number of, within the defined area, that need to agree to be in it in order to meet that classification. And as long as they do, then the signs will go up and they will remain as long as they still meet those criteria.
Do you know how many active ones we have right now?
It's not a high number. I can get that to you so you guys have that information, and if we choose to go down that road of trying to push that more, that's something we greatly appreciate.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? First one?
The quick growth, the unbelievable quick growth that we have in Gilbert, is it fair to say we are not, do we have enough police presence? Do we need to hire more officers? I personally feel we need to hire more officers. I think you guys have way too much on your backs, because all of a sudden we went from this little town to huge apartments everywhere and all this kind of stuff. I think that could be one of the major problems, is there is not enough police presence because there's not enough police officers.
Thank you for the question. You can come to budget with me and try to give you some more officers. But we have, obviously, when I first moved to Gilbert in '95, I think there was just over 60,000 people. The growth over the last 25, 30 years has been amazingly fast and quick. The town, the city, the police department, everyone has done everything they can to keep up with that growth. But it is a challenge. And not only that growth from 20 years ago, we've got to now maintain it. Stuff that we built 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's coming time to recycle that and make sure that our community is safe and we have good growth. But to your point, I've been chief here 6.5 years, going on 7 this summer, and we've added 100 officers since the time that I've been here. And that's good. I'm not sure which way to take your expression. But we are growing as the community is growing. And that we have a lot of needs, and there's a lot we could do, but we do have to be working within the confines of the city budget, not just the PD's budget. But we look for opportunities, examples like this, where not only what can PD do, but how can we partner with the schools, how can we partner with others because we can't do it all. And so us getting into the community and helping them expand that message and making sure everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I wanted to point one thing out. You were talking about the growth in all the departments. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of this is from very affluent neighborhoods, which is unusual. So it would be, just to point it out, that this is a
Chief. Thank you.
Item 6 is talking about the future subcommittee. A couple of things to consider, I think. One is certainly the time, and the other is how often we want to meet. We did promise that we would make a report back to the full council as quickly as possible. And we ought to consider that also as we talk about how often we want to meet, so we can report back to the council on any action items that we need to do.
Yeah, well, obviously Tuesday we can report back, but I would think at least as we're trying to ramp this up, just every other week, so that there's time to digest some things, hear more, digest more, move forward as quickly as possible. I think it'd be, with all of our schedules, it might be impossible to do it more.
Yeah, I think you're right. What we need to be able to do, I think, is take what we've heard today, just like you said, and go over that, and see what kind of action items we can develop out of that. And then, and in the meantime, be reporting back to the council on a regular basis. That works?
Yeah, if the council agrees with what we suggest, there's still going to be some time to create a survey and time to go out and do the survey, but in the meantime, we can meet with citizens for some listening sessions.
And I like the idea of getting out in the community in some way, whether it's in a gymnasium or a cafeteria or whatever, but getting out and having us come to the community. Yeah. So let's consider that too. Okay, anything else today to wrap up?
Other than, it's going to take the whole community here to get involved, not one piece of it creates the puzzle. We have to, work with schools, work with parents, work with all of us, and maybe even work with legislature to change the laws also. So it's going to take a village on this one, but I have faith in the people here in Gilbert that will all pull together to do that.
I definitely feel that Gilbert still has that town feel, and there's still a community here. And I believe when you were campaigning at it, you were from my hometown, am I right?
I'm sorry.
It's just, I remember when you were campaigning, I believe you said you were from my hometown, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a big world and it's a little world. She grew up where I did. Of course, probably much later than I grew up. But
I'm sorry.
but the idea of bringing the teachers in anonymously, getting there, going out like coffee with a cop kind of idea, to try and take some of the tension out of it and work through that and do this in a fashion where we know that somebody else has that answer. We're trying to facilitate that. Somebody else will have the $1 million idea. We're just trying to create enough space and enough communication to find it. And it's big and it's small at the same time. But this is still, we'd like to say this is still a town, and I think we can accomplish this if we can talk with enough people.
Yes. Okay, we're adjourned for today.
You're going to get really quiet. Okay, here you go. And then I'll just make it easier to just Okay. And you'll just.
If I can maybe stand right there. So. How you doing, sir?
Good.
And you're just gonna look at her.
I'm gonna put that in there.
And give me just a second.
Thank you.
Actually, can you move that mic just down just a little
Yeah.
bit?